Good day and good health, intrepid internet travelers. This is a preface to an interview with an entrepreneur. For I recently noticed the parallels between Ayn Rand's 1957 novel Atlas Shrugged and a young mover and shaker named Tim Stern. I am very much enamored with entrepreneurialism because it is a path to redressing the power differential which is choking humanity. It is a path to increased autonomy, a way to being able to stop going along to get along. Because let's face it, we live in a world where we have to go along to get along. We must accept too much from powers which shouldn't be, for the fear of not receiving money. And what is money anyway? We are coerced into often doing things which are against our better judgment, our morality, and this surely is bad for morale, for happiness. How many of us have complained about where our taxes go, about how central banks, in collusion with the mental governors, the government, can just create money out of thin air and then start wars or fund wars. It all seems rather ridiculous, because my contention is that human beings, at their core, in their souls, in their way of being, we are good. We have the potential to live in loving kindness. With great power comes great responsibility, and as Lord Acton said, power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So what can we call this? Perhaps the Golem effect. Yes, J.R. Tolkien's character, the Golem, in The Lord of the Rings. Once he gets that ring of power, his character starts to change. My precious. He becomes a corrupted individual. And that's what I think is happening in this realm. I think that we are not really able to live well in hierarchical structures. There are famous numbers like 150, which the anthropologist Robin Dunbar claims is the number where our empathic abilities become degraded, where the golden rule of do unto others as you would have done unto you begins to melt. Some, like Daniel Quinn, claim the Great Fall was with the advent of food stores, the locking up of the food, so that we must please another to feed ourselves, and acquiescing to a power and the beginnings of a hierarchy. The hierarchical structure has elongated and elongated until we have a very tall pyramid, the upper reaches of which there is much conjecture about who or indeed what is at the top. However, I can be pretty sure that I'm quite far down the bottom, and my area is compartmentalized, as are everyone else's. So we have trouble to holistically see what exactly is happening in our human brotherhood and sisterhood. What is for sure is that there are levels of power which are beyond the layman's perception, and I am certainly not okay with enabling governments and their financiers, who, under a threat of violence, collect taxes, or should I say tribute, to pay the perpetual interest on an ever-growing and unpayable debt. Not a mistake, but a feature of the scheme invented by William Paterson in 1691. War is an inevitability of this pyramidical structure we're in, and it's maintained by those of us who are complicit. It does not sit well with me. I don't feel motivated by it. I feel like I'm in a losing game. And it's come to my attention that some very perverted acts are carried out as power and the pyramid ferment and institutionalize. The big boys, the big players in the system, those who have repeatedly chosen to surrender their morality and inflict suffering in return for monetary reward and power, vent and cement an internal suffering which they surely must have through vile acts, ritualized so as to provide a barrier to entry to higher and more powerful levels, a filter if you will, and leverage, or better said, potential blackmail, to seal the lips of those operating so far beyond human happiness, morale, and morality that they are lost and dangerous to us all. And the more I look, the deeper and darker my realizations become, until probably the best word to describe it is I'm staring into an abyss. And from my own perspective, this is detrimental to mental and emotional health. So, let us then turn from the abyss to the light, to solutions, to a dissolution of this toxic power. Ayn Rand, born in Russia in 1905. By the time she's 12, the hegemony of Tsar Nicholas II and his regime has come to an end, and enter left stage the Bolsheviks under Lenin, and huge amounts of money pouring in to support them. From where, one might ask? A gentleman to ask this question to would have been Anthony C. Sutton, who documents funding from elements of Wall Street banking, in his book Wall Street and the Bolshevik Revolution. Yes, the duplicity is enormous, layer after layer, as if truth were hidden in an onion, each layer making you cry. So we have the Bolsheviks, Lenin, and he takes over with his motley crew, and Ayn Rand. Now, that's not her original name. Her original name was Aliza Zimniewka Rosenbaum. I can't speak Russian. She changed her name to Ayn Rand for English speakers like me, and probably as a way to create a new identity for herself. much the way certain followers of spiritual practices do once they've achieved some new level of development. She certainly fell in love with the United States of America, the philosophy which formed it, the idea of the individual being sacred. Perhaps she wouldn't have used that word sacred as she was an atheist. However, the individual is the most important basis for a healthy society. That's probably more what she would say. She called her philosophy objectivism, and the tenets of objectivism are the selfish individual, the selfish moral individual, which you have to excuse the word selfish because that will trigger all sorts of connotations in your mind which have been drummed into you since you were a child. At least that's what it does for me. I would say that her philosophy is the aircraft mask philosophy. Remember, passengers, put the mask on yourself before you put it on your child. So there's a certain order to the hierarchy of well-being. First, it is you. Make sure you are well, and then help those around you. And if they do the same, you will find a natural harmony. In other words, you will find natural law. The law. I was going to say the law of nature, but actually it's natural law, or sometimes called God's law. If, as I once heard Mark Passio say, if you have an internal integrity, you are master of yourself, and then there is a monarchy within you. And from this internal monarchy, you can voluntarily interact with those around you. And if everybody else is doing the same, then we should be living in a far better place than we are. Unfortunately, we are not in that place yet. So to live in a more congruent way with our conscience, and conscience is the cutting edge of our consciousness, our knowing innately of what is right and what is wrong. We know that we can avail ourselves of the golden rule, which in the apophatic, that is the negative, don't do to others what you don't want done to you. It seems a rule which weaves its thread through all religions that I have investigated, and in supporting this golden rule, we have two pillars. One is non-aggression. That is the principle of non-aggression, and the second pillar, the principle of self-defense. One is the masculine and the other the feminine. And I mean this in the sense of yin and yang. Yin being the feminine energy and yang being the masculine. Yang being an expansive force, and yin a force of condensation, condensement. Anyway, we don't have this voluntary interaction. We have taxation under threat of violence. We have centrally planned governments with hidden hands which control these governments. We are coerced and manipulated to the extent that Niccolò Machiavelli is known as the father of political science. However, in common parlance, we know that Machiavellianism is a dirty word, synonymous with manipulation and deceit. In Niccolò Machiavelli's day, and in his home in Tuscany, there was a power struggle between a Count of Milan and the Medici family, and his book, The Prince, was a type of curriculum vitae, a way of advertising his political prowess. Ayn Rand uses her novel, Atlas Shrugged, as a way to transmit her philosophy to the general public without getting in their faces with philosophy and logic and all of those things that tend to switch people off. A novel is a way of keeping people entertained, which means to hold the mind, so that she can transmit her ideas, which are how humans can live in a better way. Really, that's what philosophy is about. Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand is a dystopian novel set in a declining United States where government overreach and collectivist policies stifle innovation and punish success. Dagny Taggart, a railroad executive, battles bureaucracy to save her company while searching for the cause behind society's collapse. She discovers a secret strike led by John Galt, who has rallied the world's greatest minds to withdraw their talents in protest at the corruption. To cut a longer story much shorter, these entrepreneurs, these people of integrity are disappearing. They're going to a place without government oppression, without countless regulations, kickbacks, corruption, massive taxation. They're disappearing. A little bit like what's happening in the UK and, I guess, the European Union, which is even worse than the UK in my opinion. Last year, according to the Proactive Thinker, whose video I'll show you, I'll clip it in now.
Last year, almost 11,000 millionaires left the United Kingdom. Prior to that, thousands more left. And every single year, more rich people are deciding to leave the United Kingdom. That raises a question. What exactly is happening with the British economy that rich people don't want to stay? And it's a real serious problem, because when a rich person leaves the country, it's not just a random person who left. So if you have built a business that's worth millions of dollars and now you're leaving and taking that business, taking your employees, or perhaps you're simply taking the jobs and you will create these jobs in another country. Soon, sometime in the future, the government will not be able to collect enough taxes in order to keep all of these programs.
11,000 millionaires left the UK. Why would they do that? Ayn Rand's book Atlas Shrugged, where entrepreneurs are disappearing, the main character is led away too, and she finds this valley, this hidden valley, where all the entrepreneurs are living very well without repressive government. They are looking to solve one another's problems voluntarily and living in a sort of heaven on earth. won't further spoil the story. Now, it's quite prophetic in this day and age because of exactly that. 11,000 millionaires left the UK last year. Where did they go? What are they doing? Why are they leaving? It's quite obvious there is no motivation to help others when a parasitical class are draining us dry. They have some kind of psychopathic set of objectives which they publicize. They use all of the social sciences, the Machiavellian mind control that they can muster. To what end? I mean, the further you look into the abyss, the more scary it gets. So again, let us look at solutions about people who are taking action, who are changing the reality they live in for the better. Welcome to my interview with Tim Stern.
As a young guy, fresh from school, you got several pathways in front of you, right? You can choose the classic system, get married, get a credit, build a house, work until you die, and hopefully you die very soon, so you're not consuming that much of the social security, right? That's basically how I felt in Germany, or how I perceived things when I was young. I saw all those classical families, right? That was the system I got injected since I'm a little child, right? You have to go to school, you have to go to university, you have to get a good degree, and then when you have a good degree, you can earn a lot of money, and when you earn a lot of money, you'll be happy, right? But I always thought, I don't know why exactly, but I always kind of despised this system or this model of living, because it's already a full drawn out path for you, right? And even in a good government, in a good system like Germany used to be in the 90s, I mean, when I was a little child, I felt that everything was way more normal than it is now, when we didn't had any iPhones before 2007, we had our Nokia phones and sending some SMS, but apart from that, you were just out on the street, right, with your friends, and then the order was you have to be home at 8 for dinner, right? But apart from that, we are pretty free. But today, I think in the modern Europe or in the modern Germany, it becomes more and more obvious that the system is broken from its core. There's so much things wrong with the rules, with the whole system, that I felt quite powerless to be able to change it, to even thrive in that little system. I mean, they give you a little box, like a little mouse, and then if you're a good mouse, you can climb up the ladder, but you're still in a fucking box. The real freedom is not in a corporate job or in some kind of project where you have to lick someone's ass, and then you get a little bit more payment, a little bit more compensation for your daily suffering. And when COVID hit, that was the first time I really realized it. I had like a little IT company. I was doing Abitur in Germany, which is the highest form of education before university. And I refused to be one more day in school, because when I was in school, they injected all this guilt into me, you can't be proud, you can't be happy for your country, and you're responsible for everything, and blah, blah, blah. So I was really happy when I got out of school, and I refused to go to university. I learned to be an informatics guy, but this was another 3 years of basically being a slave, for some random boss, and executing orders like a better monkey. You go there, you clean a printer, you go there, you plug a cable in, and I said that this can't be real life. So my way of leaving the wheel was being an entrepreneur, right? So I didn't know any shit of being an entrepreneur, but I just jumped into the cold water when I got my diploma of being informatics. I returned to my company, and then they wanted to hire me, and I said, nope, I'm gonna terminate this here and now, right now. And then I got out of the company, you know, and the next thing I visited was directly the German government office for building a business, you know, and then I filled out some form and I was an entrepreneur, at least in paper, right? I didn't know nothing, but I always was a fan of the work harder and something's going to happen, you know, philosophy. And suddenly I had clients, you know, I tried to learn, you know, we are in the internet time, right? You can go and you can Google and you can learn whatever you want. I mean, we're living in a golden window. I think we live in a window where we're still experiencing the kind of free internet. I mean, it was way freer 10 years ago, but we were still not there where it's overregulated. So I think this golden window of 20, 25 years I got to live is a window which nobody's going to experience anymore, because all the censorship and all the rules taking over will rob you of a lot of good stuff you can do. But then I as I said, I created my company, and then COVID hit, you know, and suddenly they talked about you got to be vaccinated and you got to use your mask and you got to hate your neighbors, and now you suddenly can call a phone number to basically blackmail your fellow citizens, right? If they are doing a party with more than 3 people. It's like, holy shit, you know, all the shit they instilled into me in school of Hitler and Stasi and I was like, I wasn't alive there, but I heard from that, like in school, you know, like it felt really similar to all this things going on in the 30s, right? Like almost 100 years later. I was like, nope, I'm going to take my laptop and I'm going to go to vacation until this whole COVID stuff is over. I wasn't really aware that it's going to do until like 2 or 3 years, but I got to go to Venezuela, where my dad emigrated in 98. And I know the place here in Margarita Island since I'm a little kid. I always visited him in summer, and I was aware that the island is a pretty nice place to live. So basically, I fired my employees. I made Pareto on my clients. You know, basically, I kicked the 80% which are doing the most stress out, and I kept the 20% which are doing the most revenue. And I just changed the contracts and said, hey, I'm gonna be remote from now on. I made some little companionships with other IT guys, you know, close to me, you know, like a subcontract. If I have to be there and change a plug, you just send them there. That was my plan, right? And then I got to Margarita Island in Venezuela with not much expectations. For me, it was just like a 3-month vacation, you know, and then I'm going to come back. But after a while, getting rid of my German mindset, you know, because we love to be with the nose, like, you know, really up and telling the people how it's done, because we are the Germans, you know, we are first world country. We know we have the best medicine system. We have the best blah, blah, blah. And then I came here and was like, you know what? Those people living in their little huts, you know, with basically nothing but an air condition and a fridge, they're somehow 100 times happier than all the guys I know in Germany with their 3 Mercedes-Benz and their big ass houses. Something's wrong, you know. They're also happy. They're also beautiful, joyful, warm, sticking together, you know, taking care of one each other. And I was like, I can't even remember a time when I experienced something like this in Germany, you know, owning nothing and still giving away half of it, you know, to somebody who's still even worse than you. But I didn't even consider them being in a worse state, because that's all they knew. But they have a beach in front of their door. They don't pay electricity. They don't pay water. They have something in their fridge. Nobody has cancer, and that's why it's a good day. That's all they need. Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned the Pareto. That's the 80%.
80-20, yeah.
80-20. So what is that rule? It's 20%.
So basically, Pareto says, or the principle of Pareto is something I learned a lot of years ago. basically what he says is that everything around us is distributed in 80/20s. It's like, what do you mean 80/20? And if you use it in business, basically it says that 80% of clients are going to do 20% of the revenue, and 20% of the clients do 80% of the revenue. And you can use it almost for everything. 80% of your clients are going to cause 20% of your workload. 20% of your clients are going to cause 80% of your workload. 20% of your friends are the 80% who will always leave you down, and 80% of your friends are going to be the 20% who really sticks to you. Now I got it confused, but you know what I mean, 80/20. And you can use this even multiple times. If you do this 80/20 cut, you have 10 clients, you keep 2, cut 8, and from those 2, there's going to be 1, or basically you can take this 20% again and do this 16/4. And it's a principle which is pretty common in nature. I studied it a little bit, and if you look at nature, you find it in a lot of things, and nobody really knows exactly why it is like that. But you should study Pareto; it's really interesting.
Yeah, no, I had heard of it, and it's interesting because the idea that 20% of your workforce are creating 80% of your revenue, right?
That's true.
Yeah, and it reminds me of what was happening during the COVID operation, that the numbers maybe were similar to that. And my question to you would be, were you not afraid? Did the government propaganda not scare you when it was happening?
I mean, when I heard first of COVID-19, I was joking with my friends. Maybe we're gonna get finally the fucking zombie apocalypse we're all dreaming of, getting rid of all the rules, and living in a car somewhere alone, and live in a tribe again. I don't know. It always was very romantic to me, probably because I was a Boy Scout for 15 years, since I'm a little boy. They have a really bad, you always get bullied for it, but I think everybody should have been a Boy Scout in their young years,
Yeah, I was too. Yeah.
You was? It was awesome. Right?
Totally. Yeah, I remember. I think it was amazing, like having these front end experiences. I was like 14, and me and my leader from the little group, who was, he was like 17 or something, 16. We went in, just the 4 of us. We went to Wales and went climbing on our own.
Awesome.
It was amazing.
Unthinkable today.
Totally
having
unthinkable.
some childs climbing alone for themselves,
So what I hear you saying is that you weren't afraid. You were perceiving it as somewhat of an adventure.
I always thought, like, if this would be as deadly as it is, where are the dads, I had a lot of clients now, years later. One of my clients, he owns crematories, right? And he owns big sites where they do all the cremation. And he got ordered to close 17 of his 18 crematories down, and he didn't understand why. Until the next day, the press was lining up of his only open crematory with all the lines of the cars. And I was like, holy shit, they're using it as propaganda, because obviously now you have a line of cars waiting because his 17 other crematories are down. And no, I was never really afraid of it because somehow it struck me just weird, last 500 years, you don't have a pandemic, suddenly it's like a big flu, and everybody is pissing their pants, It was nothing you could actually see, right? If people would have getting I don't know, blooding out of their eyes, and ears and that, and drop that on the street, okay. But a better flu, and then every day they had this new mutations and COVID-19 this and COVID-19 mutation XY192, and it's just, nah.
So your common senses, your eyes and your ears,
the logic,
your logic was not concurring with what you were hearing.
Nope.
And the 2080 Pareto, you decided, unlike the majority, that you're going to trust your own senses.
Yep. And I was pretty alone with that in my circle, right?
And that was the genesis that caused you to leave Germany.
Yeah, I mean, it was a boiling point anyway, because I got absolutely raped by the German tax system. I got absolutely raped by my whole circle, because when you try to exit the matrix and do something on your own, basically you have to cut loose your whole
Mm.
circle of friends, because everybody's going to tell you, oh, are you sure, and you can't do that, and it's way too risky, and blah 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 blah. And everybody basically, at first they make fun of you, and then they ignore you, and in the end they want a job with you. It's always the same. It's the same in Venezuela, it's the same in Germany, it's the same wherever. But yeah, when I was doing that, I was pretty much on my own, but I always used my logic and my work ethic, and somehow got away from most of the stuff when basically I entered the plane, and I was here, and nobody gave a shit about COVID and Margarita. Like, it was like 2 months with the masks, and then the
Mm.
Venezuelans were like, yeah, pff, and that was about it.
Using their common senses, their
Yeah, I
eyes,
mean,
their ears, their nose,
yeah.
and their taste. Yeah.
You had to do the check when you came into the country, but once
Mm.
you entered Margarita, nobody gave a flying. No.
So you're an entrepreneur. What does being an entrepreneur mean to you?
Being able to decide for yourself what you want to do. Like, I don't even remember really anymore to receive an order and to have like this box of thinking. Your higher up or your boss tells you, I need this and that. You can think from A to B, but stop thinking until C, D, E, and F. Um, Being able to wake up and have the joy to work actually on something you want to do. You never get burnout if you're working on a project you love. If you're doing what you love, you will never get depressive. You will never get a burnout. I wake up in the morning and say, hey, nice. It's another awesome day where I can talk to awesome people, to invite them to Margarita to come to Crypto City, or I can go to the construction site and make some drone videos, or whatever. Maybe today I'm feeling like doing a vlog, and tomorrow I'm feeling like whatever. What I'm feeling like. Of course, there are days where I say, ah, shit, I have to write invoices and all this shit. I hate writing invoices, because it's like,
Mm.
sitting in front of a computer and writing a shit ton of invoices. But that's just the things you do. But being an entrepreneur is really cool, especially if you are in a country like Venezuela, because you see things, and then your entrepreneur mindset kicks in. Why are things like they are? How could I make it better, and how could I turn this into a business? And I did the sixth time here now in Margarita. I have 6 different businesses. And
Yeah. Would you run through those 6 businesses quickly? Just let us
yeah,
know. Yeah. Yeah.
first thing is the Crypto Academy in Germany. I have 8,000 students now. I got lucky in 2021 with my crypto picks. And then I had a big German online marketer coming to the island, and it was like, "Oh, Tim, can you tell me all about this Bitcoin stuff and Ledger and whatever?" And I told it to him. I educated him, and then he basically ordered me that we have to turn this into a course. And I was like, "You're stupid." Me, a coach, sitting in front of a Zoom call, telling, "Are you stupid?" Because I'm an introvert normally. I learned to not be, but I'm a tech guy. I love it being behind my 5 screens and doing all my programming. But apart from that, I hate being on stages, or I hate being on interviews. It's just something I learned. So he basically made me do the course, and we got very successful with it. And I was one of the few guys in Germany not stopping to post about Bitcoin in the last bear market, because I was like, that's the most awesome market you can buy, right? Get
Mm.
everything for cheap, wait a year, and then boom, crazy. But this is one of my main sources of income. Obviously, also my crypto portfolio, because yeah, getting a lot of passive income from that, and buying and selling and everything. That's two, basically, a Crypto Academy and my crypto
Mhm.
portfolio. Then the next thing I opened up here was a marketing agency on Margarita, because when I did Pareto on my client base, I basically didn't had a lot to do, right? Because I was working 2 or 3 hours a day, and most people would basically say, okay, that's it. I'm making 10 grand a month and I'm living on an island where I don't even spend one. I could be on the beach now all day, right? But I'm getting bored pretty fast. So I was opening a new company, the marketing company, because I love marketing. It's really interesting, the psychology behind it, email sequences, measuring CTOs on Instagram, and basically following a user from Facebook till your landing page, till your formula, till your first email, all this sales cycle is really interesting to me. And basically, sometimes it's just changing the color of a button and you have 16% more sales. It's stupid, but it's really interesting. Yeah. And then I did a shit ton of coachings, Sam Owens and all the Americans, which are on the forefront of online marketing. And I turned this into a company, and then I realized, I can't double it. I cannot transfer this knowledge to standard Venezuelan workers. It's not going to work because there are too many light years in between our education. So I turned the whole company into something which is called Rent a Pro. Today, basically what we do is we rent Venezuelan programmers to all over the world. So I don't do projects anymore. I develop your app. It's more like, here you have a guy and here you can integrate it into a team. I make sure they come to the office, they get transport and food, and you manage him, right? That's the third company. Then, obviously, when we started Crypto City, we had a lot of Germans coming. And in my city where I live, everything is closing at 8 p.m., right? So the beach bars at maximum 9 p.m. Then I was so pissed about it. So I tried to convince all the restaurant owners, hey, can you do at least on the weekends, like, I don't know, 1 a.m. so I can bring you clients so you can earn money and we don't get kicked out at 9 p.m. But, Venezuela mindset again, and then I would need new personnel and nah, I don't want. So what I did is I bought a plot of land and I bought 2 big shipping containers, and I just delivered them on the plot of land, and we did some concrete on it. We built a fireplace and a toilet house and some billiard and darts, and then I opened Tim's Bar in 2023, and this is a good place right now. No, it's always full. And we have a lot of fun there, right? And I get free tables from my dad, with the fiber optics, the spoles. We just turned them all into tables, and every day I get a new table, basically. That was cool. And then I was sending all the Germans to the hotels in the city, and then I was like, these are pretty much Germans right now, right? And only in 1 month we sold, I don't know, 200 nights, 8-9 people being there for a month. 209 nights times $60, not bad. So then I bought a posada. Now I have 5 apartments and a pool in the middle. I have a great team who does great breakfast. So we are also in the hotel business now. It's not a hotel, it's just a posada. And then I realized, okay, all those people, they go to the airport for renting a motorbike or a car, right? And then I was like, I could do this business as well, right? So then I bought 10 motorcycles and I opened Jacket Bikes, which is like a motorcycle renting company. And basically now I have my own ecosystem, right? From the tourists coming to the airport, they come into my hotel. They use my cars, they drink my beer, and they eat my hamburgers, right? So that's a whole ecosystem of tourism. And that's where we are right now. And this all happened in around a year or 2. And this is only possible in Venezuela, right? Because in Venezuela, you can't, in Germany, you couldn't do it. Just getting the permits and everything would take you a year. And obviously, our main business is Crypto City, right? Where we create a whole refugium, no, it's called in Spanish, like a place where good people with good mindset and a little bit of money can immigrate to.
Right. So basically, you're a serial entrepreneur, and you've created business after business after business in a really short amount of time. And before we talk a little bit more about Crypto City, I wanted to just ask you what advice you'd give to anybody, young, old, who decides that they want to have more autonomy in their life. They want to not be subject to the things that people who aren't entrepreneurs are subject to, which can be governments, can be bosses, can be all sorts of repressive
systems, basically. What advice would you give to someone who's looking to become more autonomous and step into a more entrepreneurial role?
Once you manage to conquer the fear,
Mm.
you switch from survival mode into creative mode. And this is the most awesome switch you can do in your life. When you finally get rid of all this fear and start thinking in possibilities instead of liabilities, what could go wrong? How could I fuck this up? And what if I don't get any clients? And what if everybody laughs at me? And blah, blah, blah. I have a combined following online of about 100,000 people. The messages I get every day, if I would give a fuck of that, I would basically maybe try to hang myself, all these messages, you're crazy, and how can you go there in Venezuela, and you're an idiot, and da, 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 da. Once you grow a skin, but no, that's not true. That's a second phase. First phase is just get rid of the fear and just do it. You can. There's so many people overthinking stuff for like 20 years, but they never take action. And then they're old and say, shit, what if I would have done this business opportunity in my 20s? What if I would have spoken with that woman I always liked? What if I would have, what's the worst which is going to happen? I always do like a disaster calculation, right? I'm a German. We love to have all the possibilities, and What's the worst which can happen? Okay, you get, I don't know, you do a business and it fails. Okay. And then what do? Stand up again and do the next thing? Even when you're an old guy, like 70 years, okay, that's maybe a problem. But everything under 70 or 80, most people don't know what they can do in a year. And I have no idea where I'm going to be in 5 years. But I know that the things which I imagined 5 years ago, which I'm going to have, are way, way, way too small, I was always thinking, when I'm going to have 10 grand a month, I'm going to be a successful, cool ass guy, and I'm going to have everything. And then you have 10 grand a month, and then what's changing? Nothing, It's not about the money. It's about the freedom to wake up and do what you want.
Oh, I love that. So to summarize, you're saying to understand that to become an entrepreneur, you need to conquer your fear.
Yes.
And to conquer fear is about generating courage. It doesn't mean getting rid of the fear. It just means understanding that it's there and it's something that needs to not control you. So
learn to embrace it. Learn to embrace the fear. When I am afraid of something, I say, yeah, guy, nice. That's a challenge now, Once you switch from having fear to see it as a challenge, and just maybe we can do it, step by step. If you can't do it, okay, happened, but at least you tried,
Do you think that's something that people can learn?
Yes, of course, I had to learn it. I was the most scared guy ever. I was having panic of going onto a stage when I was on a stage first time. I was panicking for like 3 days, It was on a Friday, and I was panicking since Wednesday, And then I went up there, and it just did it as I'm always just told my jokes, and be like I am, and everybody enjoyed it, and then I conquered the fear because I did it, and now it's easy, My first speech was in front of like 50 people, and in May I'm gonna go to Germany. I'm gonna speak in front of 500-600 people. It's like, yeah, okay. I don't even prepare anymore, Just go there, give me a mic. I'm gonna tell you something about Venezuela and why you should leave there.
So there are no excuses.
No.
People, if you have fear, it's there to be challenged. And also, I want to say that I heard the story of KFC Colonel. What's his name? Kentucky.
Yeah, the KFC Colonel. Yeah, what's his name? I can't remember it anymore.
He failed. I think I can't remember what his name is now. But
I know his business in way over his 50s, right?
Exactly. He was past 60. He started
past 60. Imagine.
And he created this massive empire. I mean, I'm not suggesting that people sell, chicken, but the idea is that if you have this creative spark within you, this want to do something different, if you're feeling repressed, then entrepreneurialism is the way to go. It's about autonomy. It's about being self-determined. And yeah, so the first time you went on stage, was this to do with Crypto City? Would you describe Crypto City, what it is, and how you've come to this point of speaking to 500-600 people about it?
So basically, what's happened when I emigrated to Margarita, my academy here grew because we had the bull run and everything in 21, and my following grew also. And all these people in Germany started to get all the repressions, right, from all the COVID and destroying the relationships to their families because all the vaccine bullshitting, and they started to text me, like, hey, Tim, I see you emigrated to this Margarita. Where's that? Is this like a pizza? Or like, no, it's a Venezuelan island. Oh, do you have electricity there? While being in a Zoom call with me. Like, no, I'm on my bicycle and doing my own electricity with my dynamo. For real? I was like, no. What do you want from me? Yeah, I would like to visit you, and it's getting unbearable in Germany and everything. It's like, yeah, why not? Come over, pick you up from the airport, and show you the island a little bit, And this started to multiply itself, right? Because one guy was here and he got home and he told it his friend, and the friend told it the cousin, and the next time they came with 4 people, 5 people, and they started buying houses, right? And a lot of houses, some in the north, some in the south, some in the east, some in the west. And when you are here in another country, you do what every German guy does when he is in a foreign country. He's creating a Stammtisch, which is basically a weekly reunion, where you sit together and share your experiences being in that country. And the idea of living closer together emerged, and the first prototype was buying an apartment tower, like with 30, 40 units, and everybody gets one apartment. But to be honest, who wants to live in the 3rd floor? You either live in the penthouse or you live in the lobby, so you don't have to take an elevator. And this got scrambled really, really fast. But some guy was joking of doing our own, little colony and everything, and I was like, yeah, sure, we're doing a colony, and I'm gonna use the yellow building construction helmet, and I'm gonna drive the excavator, right? And we were all joking, a lot of whiskey and everything. But somehow this idea sticked, it's like, that would be interesting, like creating like a little European colony where we only have like cool people, like doing business together and everything. And then I called him up like 2 weeks later, it's like, hey, I need to talk to you. And it was like, oh yeah, the idea about the city, right? And I was like, yeah. And then we discussed a little bit about it, we made some brainstorming, and a day later, an old friend of mine calls me, which was a business partner from my dad, like years ago. And he's like, hey, Tim, I want to renovate my hotel. I have 13 hectares of land to sell. Do you know anybody? And I was like, universe, what do you want to tell me, And it was the perfect plot. We were there, it's beachfront. It has the right zoning, it has everything. It's close to the airport. We have 2.5 meters of shore, to the sea level. I'm not a great fan of all the climate bullshit, but it just makes you feel good to have 2.5 meters of distance of beach, of ocean and your houses, right? I was like, what do you want for it? And we concluded on a good price, and I got to search for investors the first time in my life. I had no idea about VC, about private equity. This was a whole new world for me. I had my few $100,000 still for my crypto portfolio, but this wasn't near to be enough, right? So I basically hired an architect. And this architect made a rendering of a possible design for the city. And I printed this and made a PDF, and I entered a plane and got to my first speaking event, basically, right? Event for like 30 people, which I knew, and we got together, and I told them about the idea of getting out of Germany and doing like a little tribe thing, right? It was way more unpolished than it is now. But somehow I managed to convince about 10 people, that this is a great idea on a Venezuelan island without any permissions and any ideas and any money how to do a city, but somehow the idea sticks, And then we had the first 10 people here, and they were all willing to deposit and invest. And with that money and some other main investors, we bought the first plot of land. And we basically started to clean it, clean it up, doing a lot of earth movement, and this all somehow got bigger and bigger and bigger. And with the new photos, I got invited to my first big speech, on an actual stage, in front of 200-300 people. And yeah, it was a success. Half the people thought I'm a crazy asshole and we are all gonna lose our money, and the other half was like, "You're a great visionary. I'm in."
How many speeches, how many talks, how many conferences have you been to now?
Around 15, something like that. I mean, it's really starting to pick up just right now, I have a YouTube channel with like 700 subscribers. That's nothing. My Instagram grew to like 20,000 right now. That's starting to pick up. Suddenly I had German TV here, a really big channel, Cable One, which did a documentation with me, the Expats, it's called, the show. And I don't know how the hell they did such a positive documentation, because I was well aware that if I'm going to be in like a reality show, I'm going to be probably destroyed on that reality show. But it turned out really great. And with this reality show in my pockets, I started to knock doors with great influencers or big influencers. And I said, "Hey, look, the German TV was there, and look, we're constructing and da. And now we have 2 guys on the way with a combined following of 2.5 million YouTube subscribers, and they're going to be here in May. End of May, and this is my calculated point of explosion, where we are going to be probably in a lot of different shows in this year. And we need it because we have sold around 50 plots now. We have 100 before the expansion. But yeah, I mean, construction is costly, right? We burn through around 30 grand a week, and we need to step on the gas right now, right?
Okay, so Venezuela, it's had some difficulties. It's got a lot of natural resources. Isla Margarita is it part of the Caribbean?
Yes.
Right.
Part of the ABC Islands.
Okay. And it's, if I'm not wrong, it's a special economic zone. So it's
Yes.
almost like there's a whole cycle which has happened, which is a socialist, communist destruction of the country, and now it seems to be emerging. Would that be accurate, do you think, or am I speaking out of turn? Or
yeah, I mean, technically, we never had communism here. It was always socialism. But you see a great cycle of things which are always happening, like it did in East Germany, in Russia, in Cuba as well. You have people earning wealth, and you have people distributing it amongst the people. And when the wealth goes away, the money goes away to spend it, right? And I think the cycle is almost completed. The lowest point was in 2017-18 in Venezuela, where they actually had no food anymore. I mean, it can't get really lower than that, than having empty supermarkets. This was at the highest point when they introduced planned pricing, right? So they dictated that a liter of milk can cost 50 cents, that a loaf of bread can cost this and this and this. But if you have to import it for double, you just won't produce it anymore, right? And that's what happened. And when they ended this price planning, the free market took over again, and that's exactly what is happening. And Margarita, to our surprise and to our luck, decided last year, or the president decided last year, in 1st of January 2024, that Margarita is going to be a special economic zone to restart the economy, basically, right?
And what does that mean, a special economic zone?
A special economic zone means two things. First, your land or your island gets divided in different zones. And in those different zones, you can do different businesses tax-free, right? So in Pampata, for example, you can do food production and restaurants tax-free. And in Palama next doors, you can do software development and all kind of technical stuff tax-free, right? Then you have agricultural sectors where you are tax-free. And it's basically divided in a lot of different zones. And the second thing is, if you do a project under the special economic zone, your permits are way easier, because in Venezuela, it's very hard to get permits without a shit ton of institutions wanting to get in and get their slice of the cake, right? But if you are going through the special economic zone, you kind of have a protected status. And if you get their stamp, you're basically untouchable. This is a special economic zone project. This is official. This is backed. And stop coming there and trying to extort them for $3,000 because of some bullshit. Once you're in a special economic zone, you're an official project and you're protected, and you're basically motivated, or you're secured by the state that your investment here, it's not going to happen, or that with your investment, it's not going to happen. The same thing happened like 15 years ago, where they came with all the, how's it called in English, when they
nationalization.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think they learned from it, and Margarita especially is attracting a lot of very rich guys in the moment. Chinese, Russian, Dominican Republic, our parts, Germans, and I think this is going to be a little Dubai here in the Caribbean. And it was in the 80s. Margarita was a very famous destination for all the windsurfers, kite surfers. We had 56 jumbo jets per week coming from all over the world, and it was basically a little Monaco in the Caribbean, right?
Wow. So you mentioned Dubai. That's a free city, and I know you recently went to a conference in Prague for Free Cities Foundation.
Yep.
And on their website, you can see your interview. Actually, it's a very good interview, I think. And I saw some other interviews, one of which was with a gentleman from New Hampshire in the US, the northeastern US, below Maine, New Hampshire. I think their motto is "Live free or die." That was their motto.
Great motto. I would find that.
Yeah, when they got free from the English, that was their motto. It's like "Live free or die." And they have the Free State Project there, right? They attracted libertarians from across the US, and they're trying to build up so they have 20,000 active libertarians living in that state. And with that, you can start to change laws. So there seems to be parallels with Isla Margarita, in that it's attracting people who want to make positive changes, who are entrepreneurial in spirit and lovers of freedom.
Absolutely true.
Right. There was something that I've forgotten his name now. What was his name? Is it Dennis Pratt, the guy? I think he's from New Hampshire. He was talking a lot about how after a long time trying to persuade people to the natural state of human loving kindness, basically, which is do not aggress on others and defend yourself. The two pillars: one is masculine, which is self-defense, and the other is the divine feminine, if you will, which is the principle of non-aggression. Living in these ways, we can mutually help each other and create some amazing things. The biggest obstacle to this seems to be people's illogical belief in appeal to authority, which is that if there's an authority figure, it must be right. And when you think for yourself and you see that quite often these authority figures are not right, then you are in effect living under tyranny. And Dennis Pratt, he very eloquently explained that for maybe 30 years, he was trying to make people see that they were living in tyranny, and they didn't want to hear it. They were not able to hear it. So he finally left and went to New Hampshire and lives in close proximity to many other people of the same understanding, same belief. And it seems to me that this is what's happening on Isla Margarita, that there are people coming there, and it's an exciting venture.
I mean, in Germany, basically what's happening is that there are still millions of people being proud of paying half of their income as tax, right? And basically the other half is starting to see through all the shadows and the smoke, and they are not happy anymore because you feel powerless. You feel that you're forgetting to declare $1 of taxes, and tomorrow you're going to jail, and then you have this powerless feeling that you get half of your income taken away. And on the other second, instead of spending it into infrastructure or schools or children, somehow it feels like the whole world is coming in, and getting alimented by your tax money, right? And as a thank you, you have hundreds of knives attacks every week now, or people blowing up themselves, or full Islamic culture taking over, getting rid of various dishes in the kindergarten because it's offensive to the Muslims now, or getting rid of the crosses, and then when you are an entrepreneur and you can think for yourself, you start to break through the conditioning the Germans gave you, which is basically we are the best country in the world regarding to the medicine system, and everywhere else you are going to live, you're going to be poor and miserable, right? And if you allow that thought to enter your mind, you're going to face a really, really, really hard decision. If you are really honest with yourself, you know exactly that you are absolutely in a very bad position, actually, in Germany right now. But to realize this, it's way harder, and you have to be way more honest to yourself than just closing the eyes and saying, everybody's going to be fine. Everything's going to be good. And this process of waking up is really painful. But once you did that, you can't wait to run or get the fuck out of Germany as fast as possible, because you're going to know exactly that in 10 years, all this bullshit is going to happen. CBDCs and Catholics are going to be in the minority, and you will own nothing and you will be happy, and all this bullshit, And once you realize that, you just have to get away. And I think in a country like Venezuela, where the state of current economy is so down and the state of order is so chaotic, you can actually come here and shape the future of your place where you're living. And then you regain power because you don't feel powerless anymore. You can actually do something. You can give your ideas. You can maybe construct your own city as we're doing it. Maybe you can surround yourself with good people which you can rely on, because on the end of the day, we are still the same apes we used to be 100,000 years ago, but we learned to use telephones, and the internet. But in the end, if you get rid of all the social corset, all the social injection, all the rules and everything, in the end, we are still tribesmen, right? You want to have a tribe. You want to, as a man, you want to have your 5 closest friends. You can rely on. You can go to war with. You want to have a good woman who takes care of your child, and ensures the surviving of your bloodline. If you boil it all down, all the ego shit, why are people buying Ferraris? They don't buy Ferraris because they drive so good. Of course they do it, but a man buys a Ferrari because he wants to have a bigger dick than the other man to be better than his competition. In the end, it all boils down to this simple 2 things. We're still apes, right? So you want to surround yourself with good other apes who know what's happening, and probably you're not going to do that in Germany.
Yeah, I think that's probably true for the rest of Europe as well, and people are starting to realize that.
Yep.
So it's time to make change happen, because there are
Regroup.
obviously regroup. That's definitely the way to think about it. And this there's nothing new under the sun. These things have happened already. It happened in Russia. It's there's an agenda which is being run, and people are voting harder is not going to change that.
Nope.
It's going to take action, and it's going to take people who are going against their programming and relying on their own entrepreneurial spirit and regrouping, and then putting pressure on these systems until they fail.
Regrouping, relocating, multiple passports, multiple accounts, have a reserve not in fiat currency, if it's in gold or in crypto, whatever, and get the fuck out of there, because it's gonna get bloody. I think it's gonna get bloody in the next 5 years.
There are definitely there are a lot of war pigs on the march in Europe. A lot of talk about rearming, creating. They're looking for war, and obviously it won't be those people who are going to war. It will be the youth. Yeah. So, thank you very much for talking to me and transmitting, what's going on in your life and what you're doing. And I'll include a whole bunch of links from our conversation below the video. And I wish you a lot of luck, and I'll be following closely what you do. Is there anything you'd like to add before we end?
The only thing I'd like to add is that you're a very good interviewer, James, and you should continue doing interviews, because I see a great career for you.
Yeah.
You have a very nice voice. It's very calming, very soothing. That's good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. In fact, it's because this is actually my first interview. What you were saying about facing your fears and going with it, that really resonated with me, because it's been a long time that I felt like I need to do something, and it's only now that I'm starting to really step into that. And I would reiterate what you said earlier on, that fear is something that we can work with. It's something we can use to motivate us, and it's something that we can run through. You yourself, I doubt anyone who's seen you giving a speech or interview would suspect that you're actually an introvert.
I was one of those kids don't saying anything at school, for themselves.
So you've worked with the fear, and it's turned you into something else.
True.
So in that sense, fear is a gift.
Use your strengths and use your weaknesses even harder.
Excellent. I like that very much. That's a good place to end, Tim. Thank you
very much for listening. If you have any questions, just Google me, Crypto City, or text James, text me. If you want to get out of this country where you are, if you feel like you're powerless, there are a lot of options. It's not only Venezuela, it's a lot of countries in the world where you can be happy, where you can get your family into safety. But don't just sit around and do nothing until the child fell into the, how's it called? Into the
conscription.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, into conscription, basically. Yeah. Have a plan B. And if it's a small apartment in Venezuela somewhere you can buy for 10 grand, have a key. And if shit goes down, get into the next plane and you're out of there. But don't do nothing, and don't just wait and hope it all plans out, because it's going to plan out, but probably not in our favor.
That's true. And I'll just add that I have this image of mycelium, the network of mycelium that runs under forests, which you have mushrooms which pop up here and there. And there's a whole bunch of us around the world who understand what's going on, and who have enough curiosity and intelligence to realize that this isn't the right way that the world is going. And it's incumbent upon us to act. It's a moral imperative to become autonomous and create the world that we want to see. And initiatives like yours are part of that.
Yeah, it is. If you're a man, it's your duty to act and get your family to safety. And there's always a way If you have no money, then solve your money problem. If you have a fear, solve your fear problem. If you don't know where to go, inform yourself. So everything, the Venezuelans always say, it's a nice speech, which I'm going to close to. Siempre hay solución. There's always a solution. And it is like that. They live like this, you know. They don't know where to go to eat. Siempre hay solución. And then somewhere, they live in the here and now. And we in Germany, we live in the future and in our fears. And if I have this and that, then I can be happy that no. Here they live in now, like Charles. I love it.
I like that. My brother's a systems engineer, and he says we have a problem, but it's not a problem.
Exactly. Yeah. We have a problem, but it's solvable, so it's no problem.
Yeah.
Like a diagram, you have a problem. Can you solve it? Yes. Why do you preoccupate entonces? You have a problem. Can you solve it? No. Then why do you care? You know.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. Very basic programming, right?
Yep.
All right. Thanks again, Tim.
Thank you, guys. Ciao.